Shrimad's divine grace, Wonder Viskan, Abhay Charnadavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. Shrimadbhagavatam ki. Their most merciful Lordship Shri Shrimadakanja Bihari ki. Shri Jagannath Shri Baladev Mahi Subhadra ki. Shri Nathaji Shri Balagopal ki. Shri Gaurnitai ki. Nitai Go Premana. All glories to the assembled. All glories to the assembled. All glories to the assembled. All glories to the lotus feet of Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. I hope this marker's in the right place. I think it's not. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraya Nasta Prayashu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhagavati Naishtaki Reading from Shrimadbhagavatam, Canto 1. We're still in chapter 7, right? Is it, what, verse 32? 39? 29. Right, verse 29. Sutta Uvacha Sutta Uvacha. Oh, it's kind of high. Shrutva Bhagavata Proktam Shrutva Bhagavata Proktam Falguna Para Vira Ha Falguna Para Vira Ha Spristavapas Tam Parikramaya Spristapastam parikramya Brahmam Brahmastram Siddhadhi. Well, there is no purport on this verse, so we're going to do the next verse. I'll just read. We'll do the next verse together. Sri Sutta Goswami said, hearing this from the personality of Godhead, Arjuna touched water for purification, and after circumambulating Lord Sri Krishna, he cast his Brahmastra weapon so to counteract the other weapon. John, text 30 has a purport. Samhatyano Ubhayos Samhatyano Yanyam Ubayos Tejasi Sara Samrite Tejasi Sara Samrite Avritya Rodasi Kam Cha Amrita Rodasikam Cha Bhavardhate Rika Vanivat Bhavridate Rika Vanivat Samhatyanyonyam Ubayos Tejasi Sarasamvite Avritat Rodasi Kamcha Vavritate Rikavanivat Sabhatyanyonyam Ubayos Tejasi Sarasamvrite Avritya Rodasikam Cha Vavritate Rikavanivat. Please chant. Samhatyanyonyam Ubayos Tejasi Sarasamvrite Avritya Rodasikam Cha Bhavritate Kavanivat Samhatyanyonyam Ubayos Tejasi Sarasamvrite Avritya Rodasikam Cha Vavridatir Kavaniva Samhatya by combination of Anyonyam one another Ubayo of both Tejasi the glares Sara weapons Sambrite covering Abritya covering Rodasi the complete firmament Kamcha outer space also Pavridate increasing Arka the sun glow Varnivat like fire Samhat Yanyonyam Ubayos Tejasi Sara Sambrite Abritya Rodasi Kamcha Vavridate Kavanivat. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Abhay Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Move this marker so we know where we are. When the rays of the two Brahmastras combine, a great circle of fire, like the disk of the sun, covered all outer space and the whole firmament of planets. Please repeat. When the rays of the two Brahmastras combine, a great circle of fire, like the disk of the sun, covered all outer space, and the whole firmament of planets. When the rays of the two Brahmastras combined, a great circle of fire, like the disk of the sun, covered all outer space and the whole firmament of planets. Purport. The heat created by the flash of a Brahmastra resembles the fire exhibited in the sun globe at the time of cosmic annihilation. The radiation of atomic energy is very insignificant in comparison to the heat produced by a Brahmastra. The atomic bomb explosion can at utmost blow up one globe, but the heat produced by the Brahmastra can destroy the whole cosmic situation. The comparison is therefore made to the heat at the time of annihilation. Om Jnana Samrandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshusum Malitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was commenting the other day on how Srila Prabhupada has delineated word for word how we go through each word, and in order to make very clear, without anyone having any confusion, why he gave the translations as they are given. It was brought to my memory. Yesterday, I had a business appointment, and I had received information that something was going to cost $20. It ended up costing $200. So, in this same way, I was reminded, there was a letter, this was maybe 700 or 800 years ago, sent by a king to another king, which was actually a letter of greeting, salutation, and well-meaning, beneficial. In fact, it was an address to the king so that they might unite their nations together. But because the king's interpreter was not as familiar with the language being given, he interpreted it as a threat, which is actually just the opposite of what it was meant to be. So, this is why we see in many quote-unquote scriptures that people can two people take the same verse and give two different meanings altogether, and sometimes the exact opposite.
So this helps us to see how important Srila Prabhupada found it to be making these scriptures very clear. Now this is pointing out what we may consider to be a primitive use of weaponry, because they had bows and arrows. But without the knowledge of the power of the Brahmastra weapon, which Srila Prabhupada is referring to as having potentially the power to destroy the cosmic universe, even in which Lord Rudra, Lord Shiva's expansion, is going to do at the end of the time limit of this universe. So, with our misconceptions about primitive and simple, Srila Prabhupada gave us a very simple life to lead, which would not require our involvement as minimally as possible with the general mass of people who are living for the sake of satisfying their senses, which is exactly the opposite of what we're doing. We may look at this lifestyle as primitive. We may think of it as that, and in that is inferred that it's not advanced. But we see from the description being given here the effects that this Brahmastra weapon could have had. And then we see as well, when it is put into the hands of one who is not qualified, that the same use it would otherwise have to promote good now. It's being used for destruction. And now Arjuna, being instructed by Krishna, then is using his Brahmastra to counteract the Brahmastra of one who is in the place of an enemy. It is said in Chaitanya Charitamrita that an advanced soul is looked at even by atheists as someone that he can make friends of anyone. And so this age is such that the power of Krishna's names, because it is so much more powerful. Now just imagine, in the beginning of this age, Kali Yuga, which was the end of Treta Yuga, this powerful force could only be counteracted by an equal powerful force. Now, in this age, there is no knowledge of how to counteract an atomic bomb. And so we can see that without the knowledge of how to retract the Brahmastra weapon, the one who was given the knowledge is being looked at as immature, not in full knowledge. So this that is being studied by the scientists of the modern age, they don't even care whether it can be retracted or not. There's no pursuit to try and figure that out. They're only trying to figure out how to create more. We have enough bombs in the world to destroy the world, but those who are in control of them have to be of a mature mind to have this thing. So if a ruler wakes up on the wrong side of the bed one day, there might be an atomic bomb going off because of his anger, because of his control by rajas or tamas, the modes of material energy, passion and ignorance. So because there is no knowledge of the need to overcome the forces of the material energy, there's no pursuit. So it's only devotees that are going to bring this knowledge to the general public that will even make them aware. So they're not even pursuing in all of their endeavors any aspect of Krishna's being by their constant pursuit of enjoying and using and controlling the material energy. They find themselves wrapped up in the material energy without the ability to free themselves from the effects of what they've gotten themselves involved with. Just like a prisoner shackled with shackles, or what do they call them, handcuffs. So people are actually putting themselves through so much suffering without knowledge. Yesterday the arrangement I made was to make a delivery from one place to another about 40 miles. I didn't stop preaching to this guy. I filled his heart up with so much knowledge about Krishna, he'll never forget it. So I had to pay $200, but it was worth it to get the truth out.
Right.
Every soul we get the truth out to, if we can inspire them, then they will give that truth out to all their friends. So just by a devotee speaking to one person, in effect, he can affect thousands of people. Just like this Brahmastra weapon, considered to be the most powerful, is considered that because it can destroy the lives of many people all at once. So similarly, these scriptures have the power to deliver, just like what is called a Maharati. A Maharati. A Rati is able to kill, I believe it's 100. With his own weapon, he can kill 100 soldiers. A Maharati can kill 1,000 soldiers. Krishna and Balaram killed off armies of soldiers, which had millions and millions of foot soldiers, but to speak of elephants, camels, all these things they were using at that time, at a time of war. So, but this knowledge of Krishna is somewhat removed from that being given to us, unless you study the Mahabharata, unless you read to know the background of Bhagavad Gita. But it actually is brought out in Bhagavatam and in Bhagavad Gita that Jarasandha, who was the one who kept bringing these armies to Krishna, as an enemy of Krishna, Krishna engaged him in his service. So, of course, Jarasandha, being guided and counseled by counselors that are encouraging him, every time he loses his whole army. Krishna and Balaram kill them all off because these are demons. And so Krishna and Balaram in conversation, Balaram says to Krishna, why don't you just kill this Jarasandha and be done with it? And Krishna responds, he says, then I will have to go myself and collect all these demons. So, in this way, Krishna uses the demoniac mentality of demons against themselves and for his purpose. And in that way, Krishna is even looking to give them benefit. So they would otherwise be, you could say, sealing themselves in the material energy for eons. By Krishna's mercy, then, he's accrediting them with serving his own purpose. And this is revelation of the fact that Krishna does everything he can to help mankind. He goes out of his way. And even in the initial parts of the war, before the war was even begun, Krishna went to the Kauravas and pleaded with them, as a devotee even, with the mentality of the devotee. Please, let's not fight this battle. Let's just give the land needed for the Pandavas to be able to have their governing responsibility fulfilled. But no, as Duryodhana said, We won't give them as much land as will fit on the tip of a pin. Yeah. So this is expressing their own greed and a desire for control over everything. And this also is an immature perspective on the purpose of our lives and that which can be considered devotional service. We might, see, we're wanting devotees who are dedicating their lives to the propagation of the holy names all over the world, are wanting to expand this knowledge. It's better if you don't have your back to the G's, if you turn this way. Yeah, it's better. John. Thank you. In the heart of the devotees is that we want everyone to be able to receive this knowledge. But if we have the idea in our minds that if we bring more people to the temple, it means we have to spend more money. We have to clothe people, we have to feed people, we have to house people. But this is not the mentality of a devotee. Because when a person becomes transformed from serving their own senses to serving Krishna's desires, then they become an asset to the temple, not a detriment. And so we have to see like this. Every soul that is using their brahmastra abilities in the material world, just simply by taking that same energy and turning it towards Krishna instead. Now, we wouldn't say turning a brahmastra weapon towards Krishna would be. No. But using the brahmastra rather for Krishna's purpose, which is what Arjuna was doing. So the difference is they're both having the ability to use the brahmastra, but one is using it for Krishna and one is using it against Krishna, which is the definition of what a demon is. A demon is living for his own pleasure, and someone serving Krishna is living for the pleasure of Krishna. And Krishna takes great pleasure in the devotee and shares that pleasure within. Then the devotee knows when he's acting in Krishna consciousness that he is pleasing Krishna, because he gets that satisfaction. And that's not why he does it, but the experience and the joy, the happiness, the pleasure, the bliss comes automatically by simply developing that desire to please Krishna. And then that way we know everything will work out for our good as well. So we can put aside all of our doubts and fears and worries about the future once we do surrender to Krishna. Because now, putting ourselves in his hands, he's taking the responsibility for our lives. This is what Guru does. Guru, by the initiation process, is accepting the responsibility for his disciple. But the Guru has love for the disciple to the extent that if the disciple doesn't perfect himself in this life, the Guru will come back for him. Srila Prabhupada said, "Don't make me come back for you." He doesn't want to come back. And so we should try everything we can possible to appreciate that love the Guru has for us, to take upon himself that responsibility for our well-being and keeping our creeper going, growing. And this is done by our enthusiasm towards fulfilling the desires of the Guru, of the spiritual master. And in following these desires of the Guru, automatically then our life will become enhanced, fulfilled with knowledge, and the purposes we thought we would have to fulfill in this world for ourselves before coming to Krishna consciousness, now Krishna adds to our abilities and gives us, because when these senses are purified, they can much better function. than when they're being used by the soul who doesn't know what they're for. So if we try to use, by breaking the regulative principles, these bodies to enjoy some pleasure, then the senses don't become perfected. And what happens many times, the senses become weakened, mostly weakened. Every one of these 4 regulative principles enable the soul, keeping those regulative principles, to have his senses purified and perfected. So, these latent abilities that we have as souls can manifest as our responsibility in Krishna consciousness increases. So I was just reading yesterday. In fact, Narad Muni brought back to life a soul that had passed. Can any of us bring people back to life? In effect, we are. Because people walking in the world without knowledge of God, it is as good as being dead. In fact, it's worse than being dead, because when death comes and the soul lies in a state of dormancy or punishment, then it's not accumulating more karma. But as they're alive without knowledge of God, they can only commit those activities that will cause them more suffering in the end. So that's why, as our senses become more and more purified, then our ability to communicate and transfer the knowledge of this spiritual energy to everyone that we come in contact with, and we will become more and more effective as we do that. Did you see when you distributed books through the day, did you see your ability to communicate to people gradually progressing, right? With each person, it's kind of like a moment-by-moment experience. You go to one person, they say no. You think, and then the realization comes to you, oh, I could have said that a little differently, or I should have said this thing, or I should have said that. It's a perfecting process. And it's a process of communication to another soul, which we are, that gives, in that perfecting process, the ability to make friends, the ability to communicate in a way that people appreciate and they want to hear more, because we have the food of the truth that the souls are longing for. In all of their pursuits for pleasure and happiness in this world, they do not know that the fulfillment of that which they're looking for will come with the pursuit of the truth and the pursuit of knowledge of God and love of God ultimately. It's why we give classes. It's why the movement was established, so that everyone in the world can be filled with love of God and know the perfection of life that we can have, even though these are physical bodies subject to be destroyed, turned back into ash, that we can use them for the perfection of life to experience the eternalness of love of God. We've got a body with a mind that is unlimited. Look at the birds and the wolves and the foxes in the field. They can't draw pictures. They can't entertain one another. They do to some extent entertain. They play. But they're very limited in their consciousness to be able to conceive. So then you see within the species, almost everyone is the same. But then when you become personally, if you have a pet, as they say, then you see that pet has certain desires, certain likes and things that it has unique to itself, that others of its own kind may not have. So in this way, it breaks down the prejudice we have about the animal species. You look at a bird and you think they're all the same. So this is prejudice as a way it works in man as well. one race of people, they're all the same. But there are not even two souls alike. Every soul is born under different circumstances, by different souls coming together and uniting, at different times. Different times means according to the relationship we have with the rest of the universe. Every single planet in this universe is affecting every other of the planets that it's in the medium of. And we have been born in the presence of all these souls on this particular planet, but as well as the same souls that are within this universe, we are carrying out relationships with them that has kept us within this material universe, time after life after life after life after life. So that's why it's very difficult to break these millions of year habits that we have had, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, that we have all developed according to our own likes and dislikes. So when we surrender to Krishna consciousness, we find out our clothing is different, our food is different, our perspective towards life is different, our perspective towards other human beings, all these things are different. And then, because we have developed to what, before coming to Krishna consciousness, to what we think is the perfection of our lives, then we tend to have the leanings that, oh, they should be like I am. They should learn what I've learned. And Krishna consciousness doesn't need to be changed. It's perfect in and of itself, but its application by human beings is where the problem lies.
Okay.
Yeah. So if we are applying properly the precepts, I'm not this body, I'm spirit soul, I'm eternal. And so is every form of life that I will come in contact with from here on. And forever. Now. And then having that viewpoint, we know that every soul, a green or rice, a pea pod, a squirrel, a chipmunk, a peacock, an elephant, they can all be brought to the level of human being. We don't have to go preach to them. Just give me one moment. We don't have to go preach to the soul. Automatically, when you're chanting, every form of life that is within your hearing distance, even within the distance of the sound vibration being created, because the blades of grass don't have ears, but is not required for ears to hear, for the soul that is in its vicinity to be affected by it. So, Rande, did you have?
Yeah, what you just said about the application of the spirituality and the spirituality system, how it's being utilized.
Yeah.
I used to be, when I went from being a born-again Christian, following every statute and principle of Christianity.
Yeah.
And then once I learned, I just became woke from my first teacher showing me and teaching me how to look for the lies and identify the truth out of the lie, the fallacies. And Dr. John Henry Clark, I was a real zealot because I know how much it hurt our people and what was plagiarized and what the history was behind Christianity, the Roman Byzantine Empire, the Orthodox Church. And it brought tears to me because my first teacher told me, he said, the big problem in the world is the man-made religion.
Yeah.
He said, you can take anything from a person. You can strip them down to their very clothes, but you can't take their faith. You can't take their belief.
Yeah.
And John Henry Clark, I heard this last one say, he said, like maybe a month ago, I was just watching on YouTube, and he said, I understand the relationship, I understand the plagiarisms, and I know the history of where these ideologies came from. He said, but my problem not with the ideologies or the denominations. He said, that's what you just said. It's about your uses.
Human So I have a question for you now.
Yes.
Because you use the term woke, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's the term.
Which is, if I'm not mistaken, it's a form of renunciation that people are using to reject society as a whole, because the way it's set up, they know, is not the way that it should be.
Exactly.
Okay? And we consider that renunciation as well. But our application of the knowledge is not that now we go burning down all the buildings they built up and killing people and all this other stuff. So simply by fulfilling the needs they have of knowledge of this need for renunciation. Renunciation is not something that I see very much looked at as a positive aspect of a human being for most societies. Because societies right now, the way the world is, are functioning in an economical system that requires people to have in their mind constantly the means of acquiring this energy which we call money. And in Krishna consciousness, we see the energy that is being expended to derive this, what we call money, is an energy that comes directly from God in a feminine form as his wife. And so our desire to enjoy that is our lust to enjoy with God's wife. So this is why a poor man without the desire, this is where we can come to the point of not having anything and still being totally satisfied and experiencing the greatest happiness that this human form of life has to offer. Because it is not God's wife that we're getting pleasure from. It's God himself who is the source of his wife. So this is the difference. And realizing, see, so when the soul comes to realize which direction to turn his hope for acquirement to, which is God, then that satisfaction comes with acting on that knowledge. And if we do act on that, then it will come out in a way that unites God's loving people. Yeah. And so these other forces that we see without Krishna consciousness, without the ability to see the soul, because this is the distinguishing factor that's keeping all these societies divided from each other, is not realizing we are all eternal souls, part and parcel of God, and meant to fulfill God's will in our lives. But then they take the technicalities of the ritual and use it as a dividing factor. Now, we have ritual, but we see it as ritual, and we don't use it to try and gain something from God. We realize the ritual as a means of fulfilling that part of our life which is needed to express what in the spiritual world is normal association, offering water to God, fanning God with a fan, offering him the fire, warmth, and also light. So these, in the spiritual world, we look at it here as a form of worship, right? But in the spiritual world, if you go to Krishna's house, he will sit you on the best seat of his house and fan you and offer you these things. That's how Krishna is. So these things that we are taking in this world of separate from our daily activities as a form of ritualistic activities that some people use to try and gain favor so that they can, again, enjoy God's wife. We don't see it like that, right? So similarly, Tulsi Maharani is a plant. And most human beings don't think of plants as advanced spiritual living entities, right? But by a devotee knowing the inside story of the soul. Now, with most plants, you can have, let's say, a rose flower. You have one rose that is a soul. Then you take another rose, it's a different soul. But with Tulsi Maharani, every single one of the plants that manifest as Tulsi is an expansion of Tulsi. See, this is the nature of God and his direct expansions. So love is the same way. Love expands itself. But these souls that are of an individual nature, that don't have the ability to expand themselves, even though some of them do, it is because they're without the knowledge. We don't expand ourselves either, but there are yogis up to 7 times. They can manifest a mental body on the other side of the world. And they can get there by the speed of the mind. But these are latent potencies that the soul has the ability of manifesting when the time is needed in God's service. And otherwise, when they get used, just like this Brahmastra weapon being brought up, I don't know if you were here when we read the verse, but the Brahmastra weapon is described as even more powerful than the atomic weapon, which in the end of this entirety of the existence of this universe will be used by Lord Shiva to destroy in a dance, which he will take pleasure in, even though he's angry. Because the only souls that will be left at that time are those souls that have been circling, and getting exposed to God, but never taking advantage of the truth being given to them. And they will be left at the end of the entirety, the lifetime, the entirety of the universe is 311,400 billion, give or take a few billion years, the way we keep track of time. Yeah, and we are 52% through that now, 52%. But see, that does not mean that individual planets cannot be totally destroyed during that interim, depending upon the mentality of the inhabitants. And karma works in that way as a destructive force sometimes. Karma can work in many ways. It can be a force of good for people in a mode of goodness, creating karma. But that's why we don't want karma at all. Good, bad, indifferent anyway. Because karma keeps us bound here. So we see many, what we might say is normal human beings, trying to establish what they think to be as good, say, organizations in the world that feed the poor, clothe the poor, and house the poor, and like this. Those kinds of activities, without full knowledge of God, only cause the one who takes part in that to come back again, to do it over and over and over again. And so Krishna wants to give them through us, because he's giving us the knowledge of the fact of the soul being part and parcel of him. The words Christ used to describe that was the way, the truth, and the life. So we are all partaking in life. And the life that we are partaking in, if we're following God, is a path. Path to knowledge is the way, described as the way. But people who were in religious circles at the time he was speaking these truths about the nature of the soul was interpreted to mean that he was saying he's God. And so they killed him for that, because of their lack of understanding of the meaning, which is why many times he would say, if you have the eyes to see or if you have the ears to hear. He wasn't just talking about having an ear to hear. He was talking about having the means to be able to understand what he was saying. And that's what separated him from the so-called religious, who were using their forms of religion to try and exalt themselves above the rest of society. I'm better than you are mentality, which is totally false ego. Because we have to see ourselves for who we are. In the natural state the soul is, it is more glorious, sheds more light than millions of suns. Think about that. And Lord Chaitanya revealed this to those very ones who were in their positions thinking of themselves as to use this position to find that they would be themselves God. We call Mayavadi, which is what I was trying to share with you, that most of these schools are involved with the process of, because to most human beings who have any idea of God whatsoever, they would think of that as perfection. If you could be God, then you could be perfect. You could command anything you want and do anything you want and have everything, you know. And so we can see in God's application through his devotees of love that it takes on a completely different form of communication than what people who are using these teachings to try and aggrandize themselves and make themselves, because it's all, when false ego mixes with spirituality, it doesn't work. And it backfires, and it is the cause of all of these divisions. My church is better than your church. My group is better than your group. My political side is better than your political side. Where we're all souls, and there were, in fact, communities established amongst Native American Indian tribes on this land we call the United States. They're not very united, actually, these states. Especially if every individual has a completely different opinion about every subject matter, how are we going to call ourselves united, you know? But they were functioning in such a way that there would not be any conclusion drawn by the entirety of the society until everyone's voice was heard. The only way that can be done is if people, like Manu Samhita says, people, in order for government to function properly, have to be governing in small enough groups for everyone to have representation. And it is by this kind of thing that we have now believing that, oh, I can be the representative of 1 million people, or 2 million people, or what to speak the precedent, how many millions of people in the whole United States, which doesn't work like that. And that's why we have so much wars against each other. These people are not able to come to a common conclusion with each other. So, I don't want to use his name even in class. He has contributed to Srila Prabhupada's purpose. But he's trying, Mr. Trump is trying to bring together and stop these wars, stop these killing, all this warring. And so the souls that can see the need for human beings to unite in love. And love is it's not a naive thing that we just accept everybody as right and I'll just go along with anything. No, but with true love of God comes full knowledge to protect us from those things that will bind us again if we give ourselves over to that energy. So we have to protect ourselves, we have to protect one another as well. And this is how truth does it, by classes, by study of the scripture, and by sharing with one another. Because as immature as we are, by our internal love to become perfected and are sharing with one another, with those who are more advanced than we are, then we can get from them that more advanced knowledge that we need to ourselves mature more as well. So this is the way Krishna consciousness is set up. We submit unto those who have received knowledge before we did, who have developed that knowledge to the extent that they are more able to communicate that knowledge to the rest of humankind. And then by their sharing with us, then we get from them the treasure that they have found. So we're sharing the greatest treasure human life has to offer by knowing the supreme controller of everything, who is love itself, ultimately wanting everything for all forms of life to be experienced in full truth.
The absolute truth.
And in love, yeah, absolute truth.
The absolute truth.
Absolute truth.
Yeah.
We run a little over tonight.
Keep on going.
There might be something.
It don't matter.
Yeah. Well, everything's on schedule. We have a schedule.
Oh, we got a schedule.
And you know, Krishna, he says, time I am. So we have been lately, well, I would say it's been going on for years now. When I first came to Krishna consciousness, when I first started washing pots, I did that for about 6 weeks, then I got trained up as brahmachari in Ann Arbor, then I went out distributing books. And through all these activities, you learn various aspects of ways to apply the philosophy. What's the point I wanted to make, though? I was talking about Krishna. We get different responsibilities as time goes on. Oh, boy, there was a really nice point I wanted to make. The mind, you know, is so many branched.
Right.
And there's so many subjects that the mind can be filled with, all pertinent to Krishna consciousness. And this thing that's looked at as wandering of the mind, it's by lack of control of the mind. And it's my own fault. I didn't chant like I should be this morning. Time. Krishna says, time I am, right? So for the past few years, when I first started going on the altar, nobody was ever late. There was no such thing as late. And if I was late for an offering for a minute, the cook would let everybody in the whole community know about it. It's because this aspect of being on time with Krishna, he has declared, is the most important aspect of the offering itself. Now, put the offering on to allow Krishna to enjoy it for a specific amount of time. But if we're late, the next offering has to be done, and the arti has to be done at a specific time, allowing Krishna a specific amount of time. So if we're late with the offering, we're going to be on time with the arti, that means we're going to take away from Krishna while he's enjoying. So you ever sit down in a restaurant, and before you're done eating, they come and clear your plate? You wouldn't eat there again, would you? Why do we expect Krishna has to come by the time we say? I can be late now. We go on 10 minutes sometimes, and it's not. It's common thing. Not only that, after the 10 minutes being late, they bring another plate on that doesn't even hear the mantras. This is really bad. We do not know what we are committing offenses every day. I try to express these things.
We have Gordon the tie.
Yes.
We have Gordon the tie.
This is why, if you choose to worship Krishna in this Murti form, Srila Prabhupada gave understanding. We worship Gaurnitai. Why? Because Gaurnitai and the Panchatattva, the 5 aspects of Krishna's personality revealed in these 5 personalities that we worship, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita, Giradhar, and Srivas. These 5 personalities make up what we call the Panchatattva, 5 truths. And Krishna is not accepting offenses through these 5 truths. So you can worship Krishna in this form, and no matter what offense you are unaware of that you are committing, he doesn't accept offense in that form. So see how merciful God is. But by practice of worship of Lord Chaitanya, he gives us knowledge of how to worship Krishna perfectly. But Srila Prabhupada never encouraged devotees to worship deities at home above and beyond worship of deity in the temple. The temple is what is bringing the souls together, and it is the totality of love of God that we experience with one another when we are all combined together. But it's not dependent upon that, because your love for Krishna is just as pure when you offer it individually. But in a united way, Lord Chaitanya, this woke you're talking about, he took 5,000. What has happened? 5,000 devotees. What has happened? Devotees in smaller groups were playing mridangas and kartals and singing Krishna's names, which was against, at that time, Muslim teachings, Islam. So Khan Kazi, who was the ruler at that time of a particular state, was ruling from the teachings of Quran. And Lord Chaitanya, being his nephew, when he heard that Khan Kazi had demanded that the drums that were being used to his, what do you call them, police officers, when he saw the kirtan, they should break the mridangas. And they did that to one of Lord Chaitanya's associates. So Lord Chaitanya gathered together 5,000 souls and went to the house of Khan Kazi. Now think about that. 5,000 people, this is the woke, right? But they came chanting. And then Lord Chaitanya went and gave him personal darshan of his own love and revealed to him these statements in the Quran that are made about chanting God's names. But then he also pointed out imperfections found in the Quran to Khan Kazi. The discussion is not detailed because it is an offense to speak against scriptures that are leading to the Vedic conclusion. So even that we consider the Bible to be given to a specific group of people, which we call Sudra. Everybody in this age is born Sudra. Sudra means we have the knowledge and the ability to sweep the street, to clean pots and pans and things of these kinds of jobs that seem in the world to be menial jobs, right? And in India, this system of governing society was corrupted. And so that's what's happening now, to some extent. How it was corrupted was that it was believed that if you were born into a Sudra family, that meant you were Sudra for the rest of your life. You couldn't get out. If you were born in a Vaishya family, you're a Vaishya. If you're born in an administrative class family, you would be a Kshatriya. If you were born in a Brahmin family, you're a Brahmin. Automatically, without qualification. But that's not how Krishna consciousness works. So when Lord Chaitanya came, he revealed through presenting Krishna consciousness that people qualify by the activities of their life. And in Krishna consciousness, all these activities then become transcendental to the modes, because the soul that is serving Krishna is removed from the effects of karma. Krishna removes them. So now that activity that would be considered low class, mopping the floors or cutting the grass or trimming the weeds, whatever, they are at the top of the line now because they're directly related to Krishna. So a Brahmin can engage in any of these acts and remain transcendental. Why? Because he's not doing it for himself. He doesn't want the end result that energy of Mahalakshmi Devi would be for his enjoyment. He doesn't have that mentality. He has the mentality of doing it for Krishna, which removes the soul from the end effect that, quote unquote, money would be. And thereby getting the greatest reward, which is eternal. There is no employer in this world that is going to write you a check of eternity. Today, you've done such a great job, I'll give you eternity. It doesn't happen, right? But Krishna does. Doesn't give you the check. But he speaks the promise. And if you come to trust Krishna, which you will, if you start chanting these names and get the taste of who Krishna is and how powerful he is. Lord Chaitanya, and I suspect even there are times, Krishna has a hard time concealing his glories. Because if it was revealed, the glory of God was revealed to us at any time, we couldn't contain it with these bodies. These mortal bodies are not made for that. They were made for trying to find pleasure in this material world, which is why we got here. By Krishna's will, he allowed us to find a place where we can fulfill those desires we have for eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. And that's what this world is made for. But when the devotee turns his tide towards wanting to develop love for God, then all the effects he would otherwise accumulate by trying to work out this eating, sleeping, and mating, and defending for his own pleasure, and that's all gone. Goes away. Krishna takes it away and gives him bliss instead. So yeah. See, only devotees can see like this. You won't get this class from going down to Wayne County College or Michigan State or any of these. They're not giving self-realization. And when you come to a point in life after developing this knowledge, you come to realize without it, they have nothing. If all of their efforts are going to be at the end, even heaven is actually a bigger trap than hell. Hell doesn't last as long, and then you come back into a place where you can be purified on the earth. Heaven, by Krishna's mercy, is reduced the way they keep track of time. But that does not mean there are not souls who might have to suffer for 1,000 years. I mean, the colonel may be clucking his hand for another 10,000 years. Many of these chickens are getting killed because of his recipe, which normally a recipe that brings long life to living entities with recipes passed down for thousands and thousands of years, one would get great benefit from God for giving this to humanity alone. But instead, there are devising ways with the mind who can be the greatest enemy just as much as he can be our greatest friend. Devising ways with the mind to become more and more entangled in the suffering of birth, death, old age, and disease. We're so fortunate to have this knowledge and to be able to share with one another this that gives us life and association and food that the soul lives on. I really run home now, so we better head for prasadam time. Is there any questions, any comments, any realizations? Maybe someone like to share. Jai. Grantaraj Shrimadbhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.